Another big one, DreamHack Zowie Open. It's DreamHack Winter, where gamers from across the world, not only Sweden, gather to play their favorite games in a huge hall of noise, lights, and fun. It is, of course, DreamHack, and this is the Counter-Strike tournament. The DreamHack Zowie Open returns, and it's always a whole lot of fun. This time, we get 8 teams from around the world gathering in Sweden to do their very best to battle for their slice of $100,000. It's certainly a not bad chunk of change, and we are here, as always, to guide you through the action. I'm your host, Alex Machine Richardson. I've ironed my shirt this time. Couldn't get a haircut, but 1 out of 2 isn't bad. And I'm joined, of course, by someone who doesn't need to cut his hair off all that often. It's Jason Moses O'Toole, and someone who probably wants to cut his hair immediately. Look at this trend. It's, of course, Janko YNK Paunovic, gentlemen.
I love that. I love the mohawk.
Can we quickly, of course, social media is throughout this event, hashtag DHOpen. Love or hate? Just tweet love or hate for Janko's mohawk, because I'm still not sure.
I love it.
You love it?
I'm going to do a lot of love tweets for that.
Okay, just like 4 or 5? Yep. Okay, sweet.
All my different alternate accounts will be tweeted.
But then you'll reveal your identity.
I'm definitely going to base my life decisions but on the opinions of the internet, of course, because when was that ever a bad idea, right?
It's true. It's obviously pinch of salt. He's still doing it for charity, so much love to Janko. If you're unaware, of course, raising lots of money for and awareness for men's health through November.
I noticed you have lost your pink nails.
Yes, and actually, it feels weird. There are still little elements of pink on there just to kind of remind me of my time in Oakland. And talking of Oakland, that is where we have just got back from. How are you feeling, Jason? Because jet lag is probably very real right now.
Definitely no jet lag. Definitely didn't wake up at 5:30 in the morning ready for breakfast. Definitely didn't meet up with everyone else there from Oakland who wanted to eat breakfast at 6:30 in the morning. So, all good.
Okay, all good. In your books, Janko, how you feeling, bro?
I've seen better days, Alex. I think that's a safe statement to make. I've seen better days, but we'll see how it goes. I think that the start is going to be smooth. I think the 3rd or 4th game is when we're going to start struggling. But let's hope for some good games then.
Hey, dude, it's right. We've got Monster Energy. That will help us soldier through.
Pallets of it out back.
Pallets of Monster Energy. And they're not the only sponsor that have enabled us to make this event happen. In fact, there's an abundance of them. The likes of Razer, Alienware. We've even had G2A, Zowie, and I think that's all of them so far that have been helping us out. Of course, one very special sponsor, which you'll see beneath the desk in just a moment. Of course, the Score eSports application. You know, I'm back. I'm back on it.
Loves it.
It's my favorite. So do be sure to check it out, though, of course, alongside the rest of the sponsors. So with that said, and we have, of course, told you to tweet us whether you love or hate Janko's hair, these are the important questions we're asking. We actually can start talking about a bit of Counter-Strike, gentlemen. Before we talk about the tournament as a whole, yes, I said 8 teams are competing. I do want to just quickly start, reminding everyone like what the lay of the land is for our game, because it's constantly evolving, constantly changing. And so, what's the story these last 4 weeks, Jason? Where do we start?
I mean, obviously, there's been that streak of all these different tournaments we've had, so many different winners in the last 7 or 8 events. I think there's been 7 winners of the last 8 events. So that's pretty crazy to see that much, different teams that can challenge. There's also been like a new Stars Rising, Magisboy, and Config, the big ones, Stewie and Automatic. These guys, these 4 players specifically, have risen up to be some upcoming stars that we have in the scene. But also just the fact that it's getting to the end of the year. Everyone's gearing up for that major qualifier. Everyone's gearing up. There's not a whole lot of events left in the year, so everyone's just getting ready for the major, and the major qualifier is that big one. So everyone's trying to play themselves in a good form.
Everyone's just trying to find that form. Is it possible people can peak too early, Janko? Is that genuinely a discussion we can have?
Perhaps, but I think the bigger problem is that at this point, the teams, even if they perhaps want to make a roster change, you really can't do it because the major qualifier is coming so right up. So that summer period that we had of roster changes and teams adjusting after that, I think that's over now. You have to stick with what you've got and try and do your best for that major qualifier.
And it certainly does help when you go for something like a DreamHack Zowie Open. I mean, these are the beautiful scenarios when you can... Damn it. I was trying to keep it together. It's just Semler ducking and diving under cameras so that he doesn't get seen. We saw you though, August. He will be, of course, present casting. They've got a lot to look forward to. And
he just won the Broadcaster of the Year award as well.
Yes, he did, and his acceptance speech was really nice.
It was cute.
Yeah, it was sweet. And we plenty of celebrations.
Yeah, plenty of celebrations.
There were plenty of awards that day. Plenty of awards.
eSports Broadcasting Diversity of the Year went to yourself?
Yeah, but we created that ourselves, guys. It doesn't quite
count. I think Jason made a good point off air. It feels like that day started with all those awards. And it's still that day.
Yeah,
that day is still going on.
Well, maybe you know what, I can give you an award of some fantastic CS because yes, August, yes, Metis is here as well. He's going to be casting. Normally, we'd head over to Sue to make sure she can tell you guys what she's going to be up to over the weekend. However, the lights are still on. Now, I don't know if you guys have heard of this phenomena, but at DreamHack, the event doesn't start until the lights go out, which is at 4 o'clock today. And so we will not be jumping onto that stage until the lights go out so we can show you all the pretty lights. But that's going to be broadcast on this very stream. So at 4 o'clock, I don't have a watch on. That's really weird. Oh, no, I hate that feeling.
My watch is still not
okay,
correct time.
So basically, like after our second best of one, we are going to be broadcasting that. 4.5?
3.5.
3.5, yeah. So about three best of ones. We're going to be broadcasting it on this stream, and apparently it's nuts. I haven't seen it before. I haven't witnessed the wonders of it. I just heard lasers, lights, smoke, and noise, which is going to be awesome. And of course, the majority of DreamHack will be here in the venue, seeing what's going on to celebrate the start of DreamHack Winter 2016. But we can start talking about some CS now. In fact, we can summon the groups, because now we can show you the 8 teams competing here. 100,000 on the line, and it's been an intriguing venture for some of these teams. You did get, I believe it was 6 teams invited, excuse me, 5. Maths is hard. But the likes of Cloud9, Dignitas, Godsent, Optic, and Renegades are our invited teams, and we'll focus on them first. And alongside them, you have Flipside, Gambit, and Team Kinguin, who came through the qualifiers. Now, those groups. Is there one that stands out as more stacked than the other? Because, I mean, you've got North America on the right. Renegades, I'm kind of giving them honorary North America.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think Group B, if you look at it, that would be like, you know, that'd be the one we'd call like a group of death. But Group A at the moment, I mean, Dignitas, obviously, you got to put them in the clear favorite. I think the big thing about this team, Flipside, is the Legends team. We know that they're scary for upsets. Not really expect to go too deep in the tournament, but then I think everyone is going to have their eyes on Godsent and see what they're going to look like after the big shuffle with Fnatic and the back and forth they've had with Crims, seeing where the level of this team is at, because they are one of those teams that have to play themselves into good shape for the major qualifier, and they're one of those teams that have not looked great since these roster changes have happened.
And we will have ample time to discuss Godsent. In fact, it's a roster that has got a lot of intrigue, a lot of analysts baffled. But moving into Group B, now Yanko, the one at the top of the list, likely a favorite for the group, but it doesn't feel like we'd have been saying the same, you know, prior to Bucharest. I mean, we saw them already find success at DreamHack Open.
I mean, probably one of the most successful teams from the summer and after the roster change in particular. Great run at Bucharest, obviously winning Pro League Season 4 finals as well. So, but then we see at Oakland how they drop out of group stages. I mean, it is a specific you know, format, playing a round of robin group stages, so you play all your games in one day. If you have a bad day, that can, you know, be detrimental for your performance. But I'm interested to see how Cloud9 performs in general. We mentioned that major qualifier coming up as well. This is a good chance to maybe test out some new things, to try out new things on maps, on LAN against good opposition, or maybe try playing some of the maps that you don't play as much on LAN.
Now, I mean, it's easy to just kind of get blinded by the invited teams, because, I mean, the majority of that, like, if we were talking favorites, it would probably be 4 of the 5, right? I'm assuming we're not giving Renegades the favorite tag in any way.
I think they're no, definitely not favorites. But I think they're sleepers. I think they're sleepers.
Okay.
I think I'm one of the few people who are going to stand up and say that Renegades can do some damage. They just always seem to have like a real mental block and always seem to fail in a very similar way each and every time in a tournament.
Right.
But they are a team that has skill, and definitely, I mean, I'm glad you brought up honorary NA, because when you look at the group they're in with Optic and with Cloud9, the fact that Renegades has been in NA for like, I don't know, it has to have been almost a year at this point.
Yeah.
You could basically say it's a regional matchup, and we know how tricky those can be.
That's a very good point as well. They'll have a great read on their opponents. Getting to see Renegades Cloud9 could prove to be more interesting than people would perhaps anticipate. But outside of that, there were teams that came through the qualifier. Now, this was a qualifier whereby you saw that absolutely everyone competing from under the sun, the likes of ENCE, Epsilon were present, and yet alternate attacks, we all know about them. Doesn't matter what they can do outside of game, still can make it happen in-game. But now let's talk about, of course, who did make it through. It was Kinguin, Gambit, and Flipside. Ironically, 2 legendary status teams for the major had to qualify for DreamHack Open, and that's where our discussion has to go now, right? Flipside, Gambit, legends of the major, got top 8, and yet still we're sitting here saying they're not favorites for the tournament. This is a topsy-turvy world we live in, Jason.
Yeah, it shouldn't be surprising considering Flipside, even at the major, the game that got them that legend status is beating NIP in a best of 3, which you don't expect to see that out of Flipside. I mean, that's some hard anti-strutting, and the big story about them has always been, you know, despite any struggle they have throughout the year, for whatever reason, when the major qualifier and the majors come around, they always play well. Yeah. But really, for me, I'm more interested in Gambit, because, you know, they have Zeus now, they have the player Hobbit, who's supposed to be, there's like, you know, one of their new star players coming up, so that's the team that I want to watch. The Flipside front, we just saw them at iBuyPower Masters, where they couldn't play with Electronic, who is like their star, so this will be cool to see them with that full lineup.
I think Gambit are an intriguing topic in general. Now seeing Zeus in that roster, I mean, you said, I remember we were talking just when the roster shuffle was like, it was kind of, you know, alluded to that this might happen. You said it makes sense, Yanko. Do you just really think Zeus is going to be able to kind of ignite something within Gambit?
Perhaps.
Yeah.
I'm not 100% convinced. but they seem to be, obviously Zeus is a player who has tons of experience in-game leading as well. So for a team like Gambit that has some of the younger players who haven't played at the big stages, Hobbit especially, and also Mo as well, not at the highest of stages, I feel like. I think he can definitely prove to be an incredible asset to the team. And for them, having that legend spot basically allows them for everything up to the major itself. It's just preparation and trying to, figure out what's the best approach for them as a team to try and repeat that feat of making legends again.
Yeah, and actually, there's a running trend with all three of the teams that did qualify for this. It's like they're not breaking into the highest echelon. However, they're always there, always present, always nipping at the heels. And I think the same applies for Team Kinguin. We've seen them in so many different forms, right? Like, I mean, it seems like I've seen these names a year ago, even a year and a half ago. We've seen the same teams competing in the same tournaments and getting the same results. So I think they've just hit like a bit of a plateau, Jason. Like Team Kinguin, I mean, if I look at that roster, I recognize this. I feel like this same team has been around under different organizations for a long time.
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple issues with that. I know, I've had extensive talks with Thorin about this kind of situation. Is when you have a lineup for this long, you can see like where the ceiling for a team is after like 3 or 4 months, and that's when you kind of say, okay, we know where this roster can go and what they can't do. And I think at this point we know what this team can and can't do. And the bigger problem with that is even because I mean this is a problem that extends to Virtus Pro. The hypothetical is if they ever did try and make a roster change, it has to be a Polish player. There's not a large pool of players that can just take to plug into this lineup, and it's very, very similar as well for this lineup. Do
you think they're just stuck then being like in kind of farming simulator, just sitting there, just playing CS until someone needs a player?
I'm not 100% convinced by that. They had good performances, good showings here and there. They managed to qualify for Malmo. I mean, the problem is that the core of the team, it's the old G2 team as well for a while. They changed the organization, but they were the second best team in Poland. And then they were pushed out by the Vex team that did manage to qualify for the major. So that was when you were wondering who is the second best team in Poland. Now one of the teams seems to have been dissolved, and this is what we have. So it's always tricky. I agree with Jason. It has been a long time since the core of this team has played together without any real international success, like making a playoffs of a big tournament, right? So you do wonder whether it's time to start mixing things up with non-Polish players or, perhaps making a more radical change.
I mean, I think it goes without saying that you can see some of the players there. We're talking about them. Ralan, these names alongside like Mihu, Maus, Furlan, and Spiro. I always pronounce his name wrong. Is that
Sparrow?
Sparrow. Excuse me. It's like Sparrow.
This is also the team that failed to qualify. They went to the Vegas or the CS Road to Vegas for E-League to qualify for the first season, and they actually got knocked out. And they actually got knocked out by. They actually got knocked out by Optic, who, like, if you say that now, like, looking at the Optic team, you're like, okay, that makes kind of sense. The big thing is that at the time, that Optic lineup really wasn't that strong, really wasn't intimidating.
And this Polish team is a bit notorious.
First event that Alex has had a talkback.
It just doesn't work. It just straight up doesn't work.
It's so good.
So that's a little glimpse to the viewers what I'm trying to talk about. Whenever I go quiet, I'm trying to. It does work sometimes.
All right, cool.
The Polish team is a bit notorious for, having good performances. So I'm just gonna leave you have a monologue with the talk button.
I wish we had the camera on us right now.
This Polish team, they are notorious, Alex.
Yes, Kogs. I'm not gonna bother.
At times having really good performances online, so managing to beat good teams in like an online league or in an online qualifier. But then when it actually comes to LAN games, they can't really repeat that. So. I'm done now. That was my point.
I'll carry on going. It does look like we're going to be starting to address the first game in hand. You can see they're already in their booths. And so we'll navigate away from the tournament as a whole and instead into our first game of Group A. It's none other than Dignitas versus the aforementioned Kinguin. And I mean, it's always fun to talk about Dignitas in their current form. I saw a tweet recently, I believe it was from MSL, if not Magic Boy, saying,
that mustache is so good.
Oh, wow.
It's so powerful.
It's beautiful.
Yeah,
it's like the one you used to have.
It's like looking into the eyes of the sun.
Well, same with you over there, Champion Stat. I mean, you both shaved your mustaches off.
It's kind of popped.
And then there's Henry G, of course. 20 days in, still the weakest mustache.
Can we just cut him some slack? He grows a mad chin strap. Okay, he's shaving that off for the. If
there's ever a charity that involves growing hair on your chin, he's on
it. Yeah, absolutely, he is. Back to the topic at hand, while we do see the remaining roster of the Dignitas players. The point I was trying to make is that they have surprised themselves in their rise to success. They said we didn't even anticipate being a top 4 team at this point in time. They've surprised themselves, they've surprised the community, and yet it's just really fun to understand why this team has found so much success.
I think the big thing is, obviously, for me, it's at least you could kind of see this coming, which is kind of funny why they say that they're surprised to get this, because you could see this skill in players like Config and Magisboy that would have flashes during tournaments but would be so consistent online. And you knew if they ever figured out how to be consistent in tournaments within this team, or within the teams they're on, they were going to be very, very scary players. And then on top of that, Dignitas is always, you know, despite not achieving a whole lot before that, the big talk about them was MSL as a leader was just so good with the pieces that he had to even have them in the competitive nature to even that small degree. So then you add in these star players finding their legs underneath them at tournaments and being this good, and you have all the recipes for success.
And the recipe for success starts with the map Veto. You can see they're up on screen. It's going to be Dignitas. Surely they are in a huge advantage here, Yenko, where they can genuinely just look, what on earth are Kinguin's strengths, and just purge them all.
Yes, just to slightly add to Jason's point about Dignitas, one of the main reasons why they're such a strong team as well is the fact that they have a very deep map pool in addition to all of the things he mentioned. So what I'm interested to see here mostly is what does Dignitas decide to go for? Because do they want to play a map that they don't play as often? Maybe even something like Train, right? Do they use this as a test, or they just simply go for a map like Cobble or Mirage, which is their safe pick? Interestingly enough, they played against Kinguin at the WESG tournament, at which Dignitas didn't have Rubino. They had AZ because it has to be 5 players from the same country. And they actually lost Cobble to Kinguin in a best-of-3. It was an overtime game, but I think under any circumstances, managing to beat Dignitas on Cobble for me is a great feat. So that went all 3 maps.
Well, yeah, and then Dignitas just takes out Cobble, so maybe a little bit of respect there. Also, I'd expect the next ban for Dignitas to at least be, you know, I know that it's that Twitter exchange I always remember between you and MSL is when he just specifically said he does not like Cash. He hates the way it plays, so I imagine Cash is going to be the next one taking out, which would put us on Mirage for this matchup. Which is always very interesting. I'm always very interested that where you have in-game leaders that have the respect as a very tactical and strategic one, why they don't like Cash, because it feels like one of the maps that has the most options, at least the way I look at it.
And he also feels, I feel that he's, you know, alone in that opinion. Most of the in-game leaders I talk to, everyone likes Cash because it's such a dynamic map, right? But he thinks the opposite. So we'll see if that changes at some point. And you were right, in the end, they go for Mirage, which is, you know, it was Dignitas' strongest map alongside Cobble, but it's also a map that's pretty, you know, it's the new Dust 2. It's the modern Dust 2, pretty much, in terms of everyone knows how to play it. It's been played so much. Both teams play it a lot, and you play it as an individual, so everyone knows like how to throw the smokes, the flashes. Everyone knows how it works. Generally, the difference is between good teams and the best teams. It's around that mid-control and default play. How to pull off a good default without losing players, gaining map control, and how to exploit, you know, getting map control to have a good end to the round.
Well, with Mirage known and the fact that we've already seen that the Poles can surprise on that map, I am rather intrigued to get our first prediction segment done. Yenko, I know you don't like it, but that's how this is going to go. Kinguin versus Dignitas. It is on Mirage, but let's not forget it was a 16-10 result that you did mention previously. Dignitas picked up the win in the end. Jason, did you just going to side with Dignitas as expected here? Yeah,
I mean, the way they play this as well, with all the emphasis, like Yenko said, on mid-control on a map like this, the star players for Dignitas all focus on that mid portion. It's Config, it's Magisboy, and even Cajun B every once in a while with the AWP and window. They focus on catwalk, connector, and window. So when you have like the 3 big hitters of your team focusing on the most important part of the map, it's going to be tough to beat you on that.
The chance for Kinguin has to be countering mostly configs, but Dignitas' aggression in general on mid when Kinguin plays the T side, because sometimes config even goes like for crazy plays by himself, and he manages to pull it off most of the time. But if you can shut him down early, get a good start, it's always like that for the underdogs. You need to get that good start, pressure the economy. That may be Kinguin's, you know, chance of making an upset, but I'm going with Dignitas.
So who are their stars? You know, who for Kinguin has to go off? And we know the Config and Magisboy are hard hitters. We know Cajun B can roam around the map and do crazy damage. But I mean, if you actually look at their roster, do you look at Mihu? I know that he's filled in for VP and seems to be regarded as one of the better players on that roster.
I mean, I think
Ralen, I don't know.
Yeah, I think the tough part is there's not a whole lot of stars on that team that you think can match the stars of Dignitas. That's the tough part, is no matter how well they play, they're not going to hit that level of Magisboy, of Config. These guys have been very, very consistent recently. This is going to have to be a team effort. It's not just going to be 1 or 2 guys on Kinguin that can win this match for them. It's going to have to be 3, 4 players deep.
All right, then. Well, with that said, our casters are ready, and so is the game. It is Mirage, and it is going to be a tough test to see if Team Kinguin can make an impact in this tournament. It doesn't really get much more difficult than one one of the top contenders to lift the trophy, Dignitas, going up against Team Kinguin. We'll find out how Mirage plays out with your casters. It's the Room on Fire duo, none other than Metis and Semler.
Thank you very much, Alex.